A winter morning settles slowly over New Rochelle, New York. The light is pale, almost silver, stretching across quiet sidewalks. The air hangs still, carrying the faint scent of damp pavement. Houses sit in long rows, their windows catching the calm glow of early daylight. Cars remain parked. Lawns rest under a thin layer of frost. It is the kind of morning where time feels unhurried, where every movement seems softened by distance, where memory clings to simple things, a quiet street, a cold breath, a moment before anything changes. In this soft stillness, a story begins, not with bold gestures or sudden noise, just a shift in circumstances, small at first, that would eventually carry one boy far from this landscape. Frank Abagnale Jr. grew up amid ordinary rhythms. School days, family conversations, afternoons spent walking home, the sun low behind the trees. There was nothing in those early years that hinted at the complexity that would follow. What shaped him then was quieter, a household facing strain, parents moving through disagreements with voices kept low, a sense of stability beginning to loosen around the edges. Children notice shifts like these, not through explanations, but through the subtle change in atmosphere. A longer pause, a softer tone, a silence where there once was ease. As he moved through adolescence, Frank became increasingly aware of the spaces between things, between what was expected and what was possible, between rules and the ways they might bend. Nothing sudden defined this change. It happened the way weather turns, gently, over time, until the air feels different and the familiar landscape no longer holds the same shape. What is known about Frank Abagnale's early activities comes from records, court documents, and his own later accounts, some of which have been questioned by journalists and researchers. Yet the broad outline remains part of public history. In his mid-teens, after his parents separated, Frank left home. He moved through city streets and small towns with little more than hope for independence. The world beyond New Rochelle felt wide, full of opportunity and distance. He began by passing checks, small amounts at first, then larger. He observed how people interacted with documents, how they trusted signatures, paper, uniforms. His movements carried him from state to state, New York, Boston, Los Angeles. He traveled lightly, wearing the confidence of someone who understood that quiet observation could open unexpected doors. Over time, Frank presented himself as different people, a pilot, a doctor, a legal professional. Some of these roles are documented. Others, according to later investigations, may have been less elaborate than once claimed. Still, what is certain is that he moved widely. Airports, hotel lobbies, university corridors, places where routine and trust intersected. His path was not marked by glamour, despite how it has sometimes been portrayed. It was often solitary, long nights in unfamiliar rooms, travel that lacked connection, quiet moments where uncertainty lingered just behind the surface. By the late 1960s, Frank's movements intersected with law enforcement across several jurisdictions. Investigators traced financial documents, interviewed witnesses, followed patterns that slowly narrowed the search. A significant turning point came in 1969 when he was detained in France. The arrest was quiet, not dramatic, simply a moment when a long sequence of travels came to a stop in a small European town. He was later extradited to the United States. Court proceedings followed. Sentences were issued. He served time in multiple facilities, including the Federal Correctional Institution in Petersburg, Virginia. During these years, his story shifted again, not through sudden transformation, but through gradual engagement with the systems he had once moved through from the outside. He began assisting investigators, offering insight into document security and fraudulent practices. What started as consultation developed into a structured role. Eventually, he worked directly with federal agencies on matters related to financial crime. This shift, too, was quiet, marked by time, reflection, and the simple realities of living with the consequences of earlier choices. The artifacts connected to Frank Abagnale's early years are documents rather than objects of drama. Checks with altered details, letters typed on hotel stationery, identification cards crafted with care, items that seem unremarkable in appearance yet carried weight at the time. There are also official records, court files, correspondence, federal documents noting his later work in fraud prevention and education. Some documents contain contradictions. Some accounts do not align perfectly. Researchers have in recent years examined these inconsistencies and raised questions about the accuracy of certain stories Frank shared publicly in later life. But even these discrepancies do not erase the broader shape of his path. A young man moving through systems he understood deeply, and then later working to explain those same systems to others. The objects remain quiet: paper, ink, signatures, each telling a part of a story that is neither simple nor fully resolved. Several interpretations exist about the extent of Frank Abagnale's early activities. Some believe that many of his stories are largely accurate, that he moved through roles and institutions with unusual ease and remarkable improvisation. Others suggest that certain claims were exaggerated, that the scale of his actions may have been smaller than later retellings imply, shaped in part by memory, storytelling, and the passage of time. It is possible that the truth exists somewhere between these versions, a mixture of documented actions, embellishment, and the natural distortion that occurs when experiences are revisited many years later. Some researchers have reviewed employment records, hospital logs, and pilot rosters, noting gaps between public claims and available evidence. But even these findings do not erase the core history: that Frank Abagnale was involved in check fraud, that he traveled widely while avoiding detection, and that he later assisted government agencies in matters related to financial crime. The interpretations continue quietly, held at a distance, never settling entirely into one fixed understanding. Today, New Rochelle stands much as it did decades ago. Trees line the streets, houses cast long shadows in the morning sun. The air carries the same cool stillness that once marked the edges of Frank's childhood. Airports hum with activity, far more secure now, but still holding echoes of another era. The quieter rhythms of 1960s travel, the open lounges, the unhurried movement of staff and passengers. In federal offices, policy documents and training materials still reflect lessons learned from past cases of financial deception. Frank's later contributions, whether large or modest, depending on interpretation, remain part of that gradual evolution. The world he moved through has changed, but the landscapes, the streets, the terminals, the nights spent in unfamiliar places, retain the same quiet weight when remembered from a distance. Frank Abagnale's story rests now between public narrative and personal history, between documented fact and details that may never be fully confirmed, between the actions of a young man and the later work of an adult shaped by consequences and by time. There is no need to draw conclusions here. The story does not press for resolution. It simply exists in the wide space between what is known and what remains uncertain. Just as a winter morning settles over New Rochelle, soft and unhurried, the memory of these events rests quietly in the distance, not erased, not fully illuminated, only present in a gentle, lingering way, a reminder of paths taken, choices made, and the long silence that sometimes follows. No summary is needed, no lesson, only the quiet and the passing of time beyond the edges of the story.